Good evening and welcome to the Board of Education regular meeting. It is September 25th. Are we in compliance with the open meeting laws?
Yes, we are.
Thank you. Will you please call the roll?
Right.
Here.
Wyman.
Here.
Carlin. DeWitt.
Here.
Herzog.
Here.
Hess.
Here.
Smiley.
Here.
We have a quorum.
And now I'd like to invite our students to stand and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
That's good, right there.
Yeah, right there. That's perfect. Okay. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If you just stay there for a second, I have a certificate for you.
You did a beautiful job. Thank you so much. So, right, thank you so very much for being here tonight and saying the Pledge of Allegiance with us in chorus. And Elijah, thank you very much for being here this evening. And Eden, you did a great job. Thank you for being here. It's always difficult to speak in front of people, but we really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And you're invited to sit here for 3 hours and listen to a lot of numbers. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Before we get into the regular meeting, we will be having the budget meeting, and I'd like to call that meeting to order. We need a motion and a second, please.
So move.
Okay.
Second.
Dr. Hess, Dr. Herzog, the doctors. Okay, and a budget hearing will be held on Wednesday, September 25th, 2024 at 6 p.m. in the Oshkosh Area School District Administration Office, 215 South Eagle Street, Oshkosh, Wisconsin. A detailed copy of the budget will be available on Friday, September 27th, 2024 at the Oshkosh Area School District's Administration Office located at 215 South Eagle Street, Oshkosh, or by contacting Drew Nehans at 920-424-0122. A summary of the budget is printed on the sheet I'm reading from, but you can also receive it from Mr. Nehans.
Point of order.
Yes.
I apologize, but a roll needs to be done again.
Oh, sure does.
I didn't want to stop you on your roll.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. DeWitt.
Here.
Herzog.
Here.
Hess.
Here.
Smiley.
Here.
Wright.
Here.
Wyman.
Here.
Beautiful.
Thank you. And so what I said before, that's what I meant to say right now. Okay, and I have a lot of numbers here. Mr. Nehan said I do not need to read these numbers because you can get all of them from him. I invite Mr. Nehans up now for the presentation of the 24-25 budget.
I'd like to start tonight just by just acknowledging Drew, his team, and really all of our staff from OASD in putting together this proposed budget. So as you've read, just want to make sure it's clear with the community that this proposed budget is a 5% decrease from the budget that was presented last year, moving from the proposal from last year from $69,500,000 to approximately $66 million for an overall levy from last year to be a 5% decrease. This is a really important time for us across our community, and certainly as a taxpayer and a resident on Monroe Street. When I'm talking to my neighbors, I know it's a time. There's a lot of questions about the reassessments across the city and across many of our municipalities, and just want to recognize that this work for this budget, shows a decrease that's going to provide direct relief to our taxpayers and acknowledges our current environment and was deliberately put together with that in mind. It also shows within that 5% decrease a prepayment of $12,500,000. And that prepayment is is against our $70 million that we have of outstanding debt from our previous projects. So this is something that the board has executed over the last couple of years. This has saved us in interest payments and will continue to save us in interest payments if this is executed by the board. We're at a total of $40 million that's been saved on interest payments over the last 3 years. It also helps us with state aid, and that state aid to a point of $4.5 million. Which has allowed us to be able to get ourselves to a levy this year as we're moving forward to be able to have this 5% decrease. So just understanding that there's been very deliberate moves, by the board and by our staff to put us in a position where we can be aware of our environment. Along with moving forward with strong services. I know there's been some confusion out there around the prepayment of debt being something that's somewhat been labeled a pre-tax on a referendum that would come up in April. So I just want to clear the air on that. So this prepayment is not a pre-tax or anything because right now phase 2 and that April referendum doesn't exist. That's something that's been in the planning stages. Certainly we've talked about that as an option, but that's not anything that exists. And as we would look at our prepayment, that would be directly towards the $70 million that we have in debt payments from previous projects. So just wanted to be able to just provide a preface of Drew's presentation, and again, thank him for his work on behalf of myself, on behalf of Michelle and Ashley, who are my neighbors that I talk to over on Monroe Street, and making sure that that we're aware of the situation across Oshkosh. So with that, I'll hand it over to Drew.
Thank you. So part of this presentation as we begin it is really how we build budgets and what kind of goes into the budget. The way we have started working with budgets is really trying to align everything off of our KPIs within our strategic plan and trying to make sure that what we are measuring within KPIs is really what we're trying to fund and put priorities in. So the way the budget gets built is we have enrollment, and in the budget document that you have has more detail on all of this. I'm just going to kind of highlight to try to keep this a little more brief. We've talked quite a bit recently about the decline in enrollment, and a lot of that being due to declining birth rates. This chart just kind of shows a comparison from where we were in 2017 to where we were last year, and by grade level, the decreases. So you can see over that time period, when you compare to 2017 to last year, we only had 2 grades that had enrollment increases. Everyone else was decreasing. Enrollment demographics. I thought this was important to bring out because this really ties into our budget and how we fund. It takes more money in classrooms and more support for students. So it was a comparison with the state. You can see how we compare special ed students, our students with disabilities. We are a little bit lower than the state average. We're economically disadvantaged. We're quite a bit higher than what the state average is. And then our families that need language services, that have language, English isn't their primary language, we are somewhat significantly higher than the state average in that for that population. And that is an area that we continue to grow in. And we've been happy as a community to be able to have more diversity within that group. So then, as we get through the enrollments and we start knowing what our student count is, we start looking really at what our staffing counts are, and then how that compares on a per pupil basis. And this is something in the budgeting process that's newer to the school district. We haven't always had alignment between what our staffing ratios are as a breakdown between different groups and what our enrollments and our students are. We've had what our classrooms would be at, but we've never really done it as far as like an overall budgeting and not within a comparison with some of our peers. So the licensed staff would be anyone with a professional license, so teachers, guidance counselors, anyone with professional licenses fall into that. And you can see in the ratio when you compare to our peer group, we staff a little bit higher than they do. Again, these are just things we use to know and inform ourselves of what we're doing. We're not saying it's a good or a bad thing in this analysis. The district administrative staff would be, the way this report does is anyone with an administrative license. Again, not all internal administrators necessarily would fall into this because they don't all necessarily require a specific DPI license. So again, comparatively on this one, we have fewer administrators comparatively than our peers. And again, that's been a fairly long tracking system as well. So then, what does the state do to determine our budget? So we get our enrollment count, and this count isn't our actual head count. This is a 3-year rolling average from a third Friday count in September, which just happened last Friday. And then summer school gets added in there from the 3 prior summers, and they average that out. So you take our membership, you multiply it by the per pupil amount for this year. It's that 11,000 for Oshkosh, 341. And then you add in any one-time recurring or non-recurring. The $1 million, this is a transfer of service one that we are doing, that we've talked about at facilities and finance. This dollar amount is actually going to be a little bit lower than that. When we ended up calculating it out, I had to submit that yesterday. So this is going to be closer to $900,000 instead of $1 million. So we're adding that in. So that gives us what our total revenue authority is, which is the 90% of our revenue that the district gets for our general fund. So you take your revenue limit authority, and then we subtract the aid. And this is for Oshkosh, this is a really big component. And this is, as Dr. Davis was saying, with our prepayments in Fund 39, that's contributing significantly to increases within our state aid, which is reducing the amount of money we are locally taxing for the budget. So then, once we get the that dollar amount that we know is going on the locals, then your tax levies get separated out. So we have a referendum for Fund 39 debt, which is at $21.5 million. We have our our community services, Fund 80, which we reduced from last year. And then you have the difference, so what's left for local for Oshkosh gets split between Fund 10, and then we also have Fund 38, and Fund 38 is non-referendum debt. So a number of years ago, the district did, at the time, they were still available, energy efficiency debt you could do. That was you don't have to go to referendum to those, so they do get into your local levy. So there is no prepayment of that debt. That just stays there, and you have an annual payment, much like what your property house payment would be. It's more of that kind of a structure. And that gets you to our total school levy. Again, as Dr. Davis had said, this is a 5% reduction in the total school levy. At this point, we find out next month what our actual property values are. So this number is potentially going to change a little bit, as will the enrollment number up above. At this point, this is still a guess on our part. We don't have that actual number yet. So with the reassessments, again, having this go up, the mill rate is dropping, but I wouldn't read a whole lot into that because people's property values increased quite a bit as well.
The board just needs to reset. So there you go.
So then the actual budget. So this is our Fund 10 budget. You can see where we've got a reduction in taxes of approximately $4 million. Again, that's due to the increased state aid that we are receiving. And then down below, you can see where the highlighted line, this is our state aid line. One of the things I want to highlight in the general fund on the revenues, our 970 refund, there's a big dip in this. If you notice that line item, we've had $400,000. Last year we had $1 million. This year we're targeting $50,000. This line item is specifically E-rate, and we're running to the end of our E-rate contract from that cycle. So they're really, when we do E-rate, we try to take advantage of it earlier in the cycle and get more of our reimbursement on the beginning of the cycle to make sure there's enough funds within that program so we capture as much. So we're running towards the end of that cycle. So that's why there's a significant drop in those revenues. On the expenditure side, everything to me is somewhat normal. They're tracking as you would expect from year over year. We are anticipating from actual to go down just over $2 million year over year from last year's actual to this year's budget. Just to explain some of these other funds quickly, Fund 21 is the only fund that would be in this section, and that's truly gifts and donations and student fundraising accounts are in these. So while we track them per se and have to have them on a budget, we don't necessarily budget for these because it's really unknown what you're going to receive within the fundraising and the donations. Our Fund 27, Special Education Fund, is tracking much like it has in the past. Again, a slight anticipated decrease in our expenses and revenues, but right in line with where you would see. We're looking at approximately a $17 million transfer from Fund 10, which is right around where it's been the past 2 years. So a couple funds, and these next couple reports are newer. Something that I wanted to spend a little bit more call out on. So Fund 46 is our capital improvements fund, capital projects fund. This is the money that directly has to come from a transfer from Fund 10 to go into it. So this is a fund that we would use for Jim Fox's CIP, 10-year facilities plan, all our projects through theirs. This is where we get the funding for that. We are anticipating to have just about a $6 million fund balance at the end of the budget you are about to approve at the end of this current fiscal year in 24-25. We are planning on about $1.4 million worth of expenses coming out there, and we do not at this time have any planned revenue to come in. So that's something we're working on as we continue to go through budgets down the road, is trying to start working into this fund planned deposits. Fund 49, this is the fund you have when you're doing capital projects, referendum projects. So all of our revenues and expenses go into this fund. As we begin this year, we've got a $7 million balance in that fund. We're not quite paid out for all of the referendum As far as the buildings go, I believe we have one or two final invoices from Myron to go. And then, of course, we have the rest of that money is for the deconstruction of Merrill and then the reconstruction of what's going to go on that site. So there's a small amount to Myron that still is due, but that's where we're sitting right now with a balance in that fund. And that will end up being zeroed out. By law, it has to be. And then Fund 73. This is not something that's required to be within the budget. It's called a fiduciary account. But this is a one time a year where it actually makes sense to really bring this and call this out. Fund 73 is our post-employment benefit trust. So this money is held in a trust, separate from any other district account, and it's to pay off the liability that the district has for retirees' health insurance. Now, new employees don't qualify for this. We had a cutoff for who this applies to. But currently, we still have a $50 million liability within this fund, so we're required to make minimum annual contributions to it, and that creates a small surplus every year that adds to that balance. You're required to do that unless you are planning to fund the whole $50 million. So this has been the track our district's been on. And then the top part of this is just our Fund 10, and then you can see the revenues and expenses as all the different funds. Are there questions within the budget? I know there's a lot to this.
And we'll have another time to further discuss it when we get to the approval at the end, in a later part of the meeting.
Yep.
Further discussion.
Okay. Dr. Hess?
So, you know my question, Fund 39, 21.5 million. You suggested to me that we're going to take 3 million for the $65 million bond, 6 million to pay off the note, roughly 150K for the Oak Lawn bonds. What's happening with the remaining 12.5 million?
What's happening to it?
We're levying it, what are we doing?
The
with it?
$12.5 million is going to pay off the $70 million. It's going to be applied to the $70 million that was currently outstanding.
Okay, so why in your email to me do you suggest to me that we have a couple of options? First, we could reduce the existing debt, or alternatively, we could hold on to it until a referendum does pass.
You were also asking me a hypothetical and not a point blank question on
So you
our
want
today's reality.
you want to take the 12.5 million and you're going to apply it to the 70 million of debt. What are those bonds? What are the interest rates on those?
Between 1.65% and 3.25%.
So we're going to be paying off a 1.66% bond early.
We're currently paying $1.2 million of interest annually on.
I understand that, but from a financial responsibility standpoint, no one would ever propose 1.66% interest is the cheapest money we're likely to ever see.
I've actually got lower than that.
I would suggest that would be fiscally inept to take money and pay off a 1.66% bond over 20 years early. That's my opinion. I'm done.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Nehans? Okay, we'll be coming back to that at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Before we get into the public comment, I'd like to invite Mrs. Galeazzi, Ms. Noble, to the table for some updates on Franklin School and Menominee School.
Sure. So,
at Menominee, we have been working on our continuous improvement process around the key performance indicators. So we've been focusing with literacy, staff engagement, and the social emotional health of our students. A little bit regarding the focus on literacy is we have our reading recovery up and started, and then we have our small group intervention groups are up and running. Students have been taking the iReady test, and so that window closes on Friday, and then the teachers will use that data to plan for instruction. Around staff engagement, obviously with the new school, there's a lot of opportunity to build a brand new staff school family. We, most of you are probably aware, but the way Menominee is built, it is located, or the grades are put into different neighborhood pods, and so those neighborhood pods will have special ed staff, ESOL staff, instructional support coaches, and classroom teachers. And one of the activities we did to foster staff engagement was a collective resume where those neighborhood pods talked about their strengths they see in their team, what they bring to the team, and why they chose Menominee School. We also did a low ropes course activity to work on some team building. And then we've been developing our staff structures and putting in place our grade level meetings and our meetings around math and literacy. And then in regards to the final KPI we're focusing on this year is the social and emotional development of our students so that they can learn to regulate themselves and make responsible decisions. And with that is where the teachers have been working to really build their strong classroom school family and make connections with the kids through their morning meetings, and then of course being in a new building, learning all the routines and the procedures of the school. We have some great partnerships that we have been working on. We are fortunate to be partnered with Catalpa Health this year for some mental health support. Sometimes our students have a barrier of getting to mental health services, so we're very lucky this year because Catalpa Health is coming in 2 days a week, so students can receive mental health services through them. We also have a Lighted Schoolhouse program at Menominee, and they have partnered with UW Oshkosh, and UW Oshkosh is bringing in once a week students enrolled in their school counseling program. And there's about 20 students that come in once a week, and then they offer a SEL lesson to the students. This week it was on self-regulation. So we feel fortunate to have that, and then we've been working with Big Brothers and Big Sisters to develop a partnership. And one of their resources is Oshkosh Truck, and they have 20 individuals lined up ready to be paired with a little sister and a little brother. So we've just been working on that. So they're going to pair themselves with some students from Menominee. And then finally, as just to recap, this past Sunday, we had our community open house, where I know I saw a lot of you at. I wanted to take an opportunity to thank our custodians for all the work they did to prepare the open house in the building, not only for the open house, but for the first day of school, and also acknowledge all of the work that the teachers have done from the first, getting the school ready for the first day of school and for the open house. I received a lot of positive feedback at the open house. Some of the feedback I had heard was people really liked the collaborative spaces. A lot of people commented to me about how they like the small feeling for it being such a large school and having some reservations about that. They felt really strongly when you go into the neighborhoods, it doesn't feel large anymore, it feels small. And then the other thing I got a lot of positive feedback was the opportunities they have for the wayfinding and the discovery moments. If you notice some of the branding that's throughout the building, that is tied to both the curriculum that the kids are learning, and then we had a lot of ties with the Menominee Nation. So that's what's going on at Menominee.
That's great. You've been busy.
Yes.
All right, well, how fortunate am I to work alongside such an amazing leader over here. Well, I'm Kat Noble, and I'm honored to serve as the principal of Franklin Elementary.
Since joining this incredible school community, I've really been overwhelmed by the warm welcome from staff, students, and families. It's really been a privilege to learn alongside and lead passionate individuals who truly are dedicated to our students' success. This year, we're really focusing on building a strong foundation that's rooted in our shared values, and in addition, clarity around our expectations in the building for staff and students. We're working collaboratively to ensure that there's consistency across the building, with a particular focus on using common language that promotes understanding and cohesion for all of our staff and students. One of our key highlights is our iReady data, which is helping guide our instructional planning. Currently, we have 62% of our students who are on track to reach end-of-year proficiency in both reading and math. But what I'm especially proud of is our first graders. We have 88% of first grade students who are on track in literacy to be meeting end-of-year benchmarks. We also have 65% of our second graders who are on track in literacy as well to be meeting end-of-year benchmarks at this time. Our team at Franklin is incredibly dedicated, taking purposeful steps to plan and implement instruction that ensures all students are having access to learning opportunities. We're really excited to watch these scores rise as we move forward this year, knowing that the hard work and collaboration of our staff will have a lasting impact on our students' growth and achievement. So I really want to thank you for your continued support at Franklin Elementary, and I encourage you to visit so you can have opportunities to witness firsthand all of the incredible things that are taking place on a daily basis there. Thank you.
Thanks, Kat.
Thank you both very much for coming tonight. It's always a thrill to have the principals at the board meeting, to hear all the wonderful things that you're doing. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'll do guidelines for public comments to be read. And for those that are here, do we have someone speaking? I should ask that first.
I'll go. We do.
Okay. The guidelines for the budget hearing, public comments. Clearly state your name, the city you reside in, and if you're acting for a spokesperson for a particular group, please indicate the group that you represent. Limit your comments to the time allotted, 3 minutes, and public comments should be made rather than a question and answer dialogue. Please state matters of concern clearly and concisely. Okay, Ellen Anderson.
Hello. Thank you for allowing me to speak about the budget. I'm Ellen Anderson, City of Oshkosh. This is my hometown and that of my husband, and I've been involved but now retired, but still active in the community. No, I'm not here tonight representing any group. I'm here as a citizen who wants to first tell you, board members and Mr. Meanhouse and staff, congratulations on coming up with a budget that had a 5% decrease. But as someone who tried last night and the night before to go through the pages and pages of documentation here, what a challenge it is. I can't imagine what it's like for the school board members to go through all this as well. It's a lot of information and it's hard to understand, and I can't imagine how our taxpayers can find clarity by going through some of these reports. But as a taxpayer, when you have a 5% decrease request listed on your budget, and since we just went through a referendum with $120 million of improvements, and much of that, I believe, I've seen reports from Mr. Davis that suggest staffing levels have been aligned and there's been cost savings. I would expect that we saved a little money. And so from a fiscal responsibility of right-sizing for the decreasing student population, that's great, but I don't see where we're going to save the taxpayer any money. We're going to continue to tax them at the same rate when this city is struggling in so many areas with the prices of things today. I don't see, this is a lot of creative accounting, and I heard a lot of answers to some of my questions tonight, but there's all different funds. I can see that based on one report, and I'm watching that clock over there, that our administrative staff FTEs compared to the peer group are high in this district. So what are we doing to realign those numbers of staff members back to where it should be in line with our peer group? So I'm disappointed that you want to continue to tax at the same amount. I think there should be something given back to the taxpayer for this new budget, and I would beg you to try to work through some of those details and figure out to give them a break, because they certainly need it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn this portion of the meeting?
So moved. I'll second.
Smeltnik, Herzog.
Ready for roll? Herzog.
Aye.
Hess.
Aye.
Smelby.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
DeWitt.
Aye.
We've adjourned.
Thank you. And now, it's the Board of Education regular meeting, non-budget meeting. Are we in compliance with open meeting laws?
Yes, we are.
Call the roll, please.
Hess.
Here.
Smelby.
Here.
Wright.
Here.
Wyman.
Here.
DeWitt. Here. Herzog.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Dr. Davis, the land acknowledgement.
Yes, thank you. As we gather today, we acknowledge that in Oshkosh, we are on the ancestral homelands of the Ho-Chunk Nation and Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin, who lived along the western shores of Lake Winnebago, Wisconsin's largest freshwater lake, entirely within its borders. We acknowledge these indigenous sovereign communities who have stewarded this land throughout the generations and pay respect to their elders, past and present. We welcome the duty and opportunity to share stewardship of these lands.
Okay. And next, the approval of the agenda. Would anyone like to? Okay, then we will keep it the same by acclamation. Board President's report. First of all, I would like to welcome our two student representatives, and I know Dr. Davis is going to speak a little bit more about that, but I'd like to introduce you to the group. First, we have Faith Lohr, and Faith is a senior at Oshkosh North High School, and Marjorie, you go by Jory, Mugurower, is a senior at West High School. Welcome. We look forward to your insight, and we're just really glad that you're here to help take the good work back to the student body. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And the other thing that I'd like to say in my president's report tonight, this was in the Oshkosh Herald on September 18th, and the Education and Talent Department of the Oshkosh Chamber is refreshing themselves. Shannon Seaman is leading the group, and on the 27th of September at 7:30 to 9, they are inviting business leaders to come together to share insights and resources with the hopes of developing a stronger educational programming and opportunity. It will be a wonderful meeting where business people can come in, talk to the school district, so the curriculum that we are offering aligns with the needs of the businesses in our community, and it's very exciting. And if you want to learn more about it, public, you can email Shannon at shannon@oshkoshchamber.com. And along with that, they're also going to be having an 8th grade fair later this year, and it'll be a wonderful opportunity for all of our 8th graders, 800 8th graders, to do some career exploration and see what they may be interested in. One thing that has been very exciting about Val Phillips is some of the learning spaces that have been incorporated into that middle school, and it should align perfectly with the open spaces that we need to be able to meet the needs of the future. So, that is the President's report. Superintendent's report.
All right, so again, I want to echo welcoming Faith and Jory to the board table. At their first meeting of the year, one of the things that we've done over the last couple of years as we've had students is to, one, just welcome them and make sure they know that, they can provide, voice and agenda items. So we've met virtually just to talk through that process. We've also, over the last couple of years, had some formal presentations that they've provided. What we've found is also that we're usually, and this is not an exception, that we've got seniors who are very busy during their senior year. So instead of doing any formal report backs that we have from any student council reports or anything like that, what I'd asked Faith and Jory to do that is, as we're looking at our workshops and our future agenda items, or if they have things that are coming up from student council that they would like to create a report on, that they can let me know, or President Wyman know, and then we would welcome that to the agenda. And also at any time as they have, feedback and perspective on anything that we're talking about, we want them engaged. So it's a little bit different process than we've used in the past. Want to be able to respect their time, but really excited to have both of you on board. You come highly recommended. So we appreciate your time tonight. So with that, looks like we'll start with Faith with a check-in with Sparty. So over to you, Faith.
Yeah, let's check in with Sparty. So these are September updates. First of all, during August 28th, we welcomed Oshkosh North staff this year with a welcome breakfast. Staff were able to grab some beverages, bagels, and fruits in the common area, and they were able to have their staff meeting there as well. And then we also want to welcome 2 new administration office members, Mr. Torchner and Ms. Kent. Mr. Torchner is one of our new assistant principals for grades 10 through 12. Before coming to North, he was a science teacher and a summer school coordinator in Appleton for the last 23 years. Ms. Kent is one of our new dean of students, and for the last 6 years, she has been teaching science at Oshkosh West High School. And then this year, we're also welcoming about 24 new staff as well. And then some club updates. So for Community 1 is currently doing a project where they research people from Oshkosh that they have location names for. They will be presenting them on Tuesday, October 1st at the Waters over by Menominee. And then Communities 2, every year Communities 2 does a special service to help around the community during 9/11. They met with one of the co-founders of the 911day.org, and they were studying the upcoming elections, and then they will be hosting a school mock elections during that time as well. And then the Oshkosh North FFA, they attended a state convention down in Madison, and the officers of FFA has also volunteered at the Farm Brew food stand as well. So homecoming. Our homecoming this year is next week, or will be starting next week. Oshkosh North has already started to prepare for the homecoming dance, and the homecoming chairs or exec have met twice this summer already to discuss how we want to basically organize our committees. This year, we're going to be playing our homecoming football game at Oshkosh North High School. The route is going to be a little different this year. We did just send out some letters to neighbors about our route this year. And then, so we will be lining up at St. Vinny's by the Star where it is, and then walk all around the west parking lot of Oshkosh North. And then, this also just needs to be a little updated, but we were planning a homecoming Sunday kickoff, and then student council was able to work with parent advisory for this kickoff event. We plan to have games and booths for clubs and organizations to help fundraise for their clubs as well. Something new this year. And then fall sports. This year's football season has really almost just begun, but so far we have won 4 games and lost twice. We did win against Oshkosh West High School, which was very exciting for all of us, taking home the traveling
Earmuffs, Jory.
taking home the traveling cup. And then so far the boys soccer team has been off to a great start, winning 3 games, tied for 2, and then we only lost 2 games so far. And then dance team has been working really hard with their new choreography that will be presented very soon, I believe in homecoming. And then volleyball so far has only has only 2 games won, and that was against Montello and Rasha High School. So thank you for checking with Sparty.
Great job.
Thank you.
Sorry. All right, and then for what's going on Wildcats, past events, we've done the Greece and Italy trips over the summer, the England trip. We also just had a blood drive last week, and then some sporting events. So for the Greece and Italy trip, that took place in June of 2024. That's the group right there, and they got to tour some different places in Greece and Italy. And then England was a little bit bigger. This was with the English department, and they spent some time in England over the summer, also in June. And then we just had the blood drive on September 20th. We had about 80 students signed up, and we ended up collecting about 47 units of blood, so that was awesome. Boys varsity football has 1 win and 3 losses this year, unfortunately. Soccer has 5 wins, 2 ties, and 1 loss. Volleyball has 3 wins so far. Tennis, 3 wins and 4 losses. Swim and dive has 1 win and 1 loss so far this year. And then for upcoming events, we have lots of sporting events. Homecoming this year is October 7th through 12th, and then we have the WASC State Conference coming up in April that we are hosting this year. So these are just some of the home sporting events. We have football, tennis, soccer, swim, adaptive sports league, and volleyball games that are all home before the next board meeting. And then homecoming, we do a spirit week. We have our football game versus Hortonville, which will take place at Titan. We have the parade, which goes around the block this year. It will not go and end at Titan. And then we also have the dance, which is on the 12th, which our theme this year is Greek Gardens. That was voted on by the student body. And then the WASC State Conference takes place, I believe, April 5th through 7th. There's over 4,000 attendees annually at this conference. So some of the stuff that fundraising Student Council is doing will just go towards supporting the cost of speakers and materials for it. And if you don't know what WASC is, it's the Wisconsin Association of School Councils. So it's a leadership conference for elementary through high school students. We've already done 2 festival foods brought stands. We're doing a Pizza Ranch fundraiser in January, and then we also have a Mighty Cause link as well. And I believe that is the last thing I have.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's great to have you back. We love to have the student input and find out what's happening. Superintendent's report.
All right. We are back in full swing, so I wanted to give you an update from our work across the system. So, in honor of Constitution Day, the Daughters of the American Revolution recently visited Oakwood Elementary to present to our 2nd graders. They interactively read a book, A More Perfect Union, distributed copies of the Constitution, and helped students understand the vision of our founding fathers. The group also presented a copy of the book to the school's library to be added to their collection. So we thank you for that donation. We're proud to offer a wide range of co-curricular activities, including fine arts, starting in the elementary schools. Our 3rd through 5th graders recently got a taste of the musical magic as part of the introduction to our after-school elementary orchestra strings program through the Oshkosh Rec Department. During the assemblies, students experienced live demonstrations of the violin, viola, and cello, interactive air instrument sessions, which is probably the only thing I would be any good at, the air instrument sessions, and the musical ear training with fun listening games. Information was sent home to families and is available at the Rec Department website for anyone that's interested in getting their child registered for this year-long program. I'd also like to mention that families in financial need can also inquire about the low-cost instrument rental options through the district, as we strive to make all of these opportunities accessible to all of our students. Congratulations to Liam at Oshkosh North as he advances to the semifinals of our 70th annual National Merit Scholarship Program. The nationwide pool of semifinalists represents less than 1% of our U.S. high school seniors. Merit Scholar designees are selected based on skills, accomplishments, and potential success in rigorous college studies. We are proud of his success, and his accomplishments are a testament to his hard work as well as the high academic standards we have in our schools. So congratulations and good luck moving forward. Thank you, Oshkosh. We heard earlier tonight from the principal at Menominee Elementary, but just wanted to give another shout out and thank you and show a couple pictures. Hundreds of community members came out to celebrate and show support for our public education during our public dedication of Menominee Elementary School this past Sunday. Highlights from the day included Menominee students leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the land acknowledgement, a heartwarming ribbon-cutting ceremony, inspiring speeches, including words of appreciation from the tribal chairwoman of the Menominee Nation, and of course, self-guided tours that allowed our community to experience the state-of-the-art learning spaces. We are excited for Menominee Elementary's bright future. So thank you all for coming out and supporting our schools. Another shout out to thank everyone who joined us last night for our first community feedback session at South Park Middle School. Attendees had the opportunities to ask questions and tour the schools, providing valuable insights into our current facilities. The tour highlighted key areas for improvement, including accessibility challenges, a complex building layout, small classrooms, and outdated STEM spaces. Community members are encouraged to join us in the upcoming sessions and share their thoughts to help shape the future of education in our community. So speaking of future opportunities, we have the schedule of feedback sessions that is available on the screen, and it's also available on our website. So, we're continuing to add some new dates and times as we're moving forward. I will continue to share these updates as the dates get closer, so you can find all the details on the facilities webpage that is available off of our district homepage.
And there's also a beautiful card that was sent
Yes.
to community members with all those dates listed, and that was very great.
Correct, yep. And finally, as we're back in the swing of school, schedule picks up, and I just want to thank everybody for all of their welcoming me out. So today I saw a fantastic sixth grade literacy lesson in Socratic seminar format, which was incredible, 3 weeks into school, and also had a fantastic banana strawberry smoothie with the FAC, the Family and Consumer Ed kids. So thank you for that, because I needed that because it was about 1 o'clock. So it was good. It was very good timing. So thanks. And that concludes the superintendent's report for tonight.
That's wonderful. District Administrator Supplemental Reports. This is another report by Dr. Davis, Applied Population Study.
Yes. So I wanted to just provide to the community just an update. This is a study that we did on our student enrollment projections, and that's something that we have done historically as we were looking around 2016, 2017, looking at our facility study moving forward. We had the opportunity to do a demographic study through the UW Applied Population Lab at UW-Madison. And so that study helped guide our structure of our 4-phase facilities plan. What's important to know about those studies, although they provide projections for up to 10 years, the true validity of those studies is for about a 5-year period of time, essentially because a lot of their methodology is based on birth rates, and we can't predict kids that aren't born yet. And so we wanted to make sure that we re-upped the opportunity for the Applied Population Lab studies. So we went ahead and refreshed that through UW-Madison, and I presented that to Facilities and Finance and wanted an opportunity just to bring that to the board. And certainly the staff report outlines some of the highlights there. It's a good, solid report. Again, there's a variety of different methodologies that are in there. It's as good as the numbers are. So as we look at things like birth rates, as we look at things like open enrollment in and out, that's really projections of things that have happened and what our prediction is moving forward. And then also thinking about, our increasing immigrant population, and as many factors as we can predict reasonably over the next really 5 years for our trends. I would say the overall view is that we'll continue to decline in our enrollment. So we've gone from about 10,000 students about 10 years ago, as we would look at about 9,100 students this year. The projection is to decrease about 100 students per year, and essentially our kindergarten classes that are coming in are less than the senior classes that we're graduating. So when you look at about 5 years out, the projection is to be anywhere between 8,500 students and 9,000 students, depending on which methodology that you look at, which actually works very well into our four-phase facility plan, specifically for phase 2, to be able to complete the consolidations, get those operational efficiencies, to position ourselves to serve our system and our community at around that 9,000 student capacity. So I believe getting down to 15 schools to serve our students is optimizing both the services that students can get, along with the operational savings that we're moving forward. So I just offer this report as a opportunity to be able to just validate our facts and update. It's kind of a refresh, if you will, of the data that we had used in the original four-phase report, and again, reinforces what we had looked at previously in the applied population-led study that we had done prior to some of the planning for phase 2. So with that, if there's any questions or comments by board members, certainly want to be able to talk about that, but it's just really for the awareness for the board and then for our community to look at and see if there's any questions on it.
Questions? Thank you.
All right.
Move on to committee reports. Education Committee.
Thank you, Mrs. Wyman. The Education Committee met on Thursday, September 5th. We had a very full agenda, very robust conversation, and so I've tried to pull out some of the highlights. First of all, we had an update on the literacy field study by Dr. Coleman, noting that the increase in literacy scores in grades 3 through 8 is a cause for celebration. Student reading proficiency on the iReady exam for 2024 is up by 2.5 points since 2023, with all grade levels improving, and is up over 5.3% over the last 3 years. Effective professional development and coaching are one of the among the 4 proven process components in reaching the literacy goals that have been set in board policy and in the KPIs, or key performance indicators. Staff spent August 19 through 20 in professional development, with the core knowledge language arts trainers being provided an overview of all materials, including the digital learning platform and learning best strategies to help support them in their teaching. Additional professional development later in September will address any questions teacher may have after using the curriculum in the classroom. Professional development and coaching will be critical elements of the work as the new literacy curriculum is implemented. Future professional development will also continue to provide more information about rigor and engagement, using more shared ownership of learning with students actively engaged, demonstrating what they are learning, and asking questions will help students master their learning. We will continue to find ways to provide interventions that are effective and that continue to stress the importance of rigor and engagement. We will be working on future learning opportunities for paraprofessional and community volunteers. A communication plan is being developed to let the community know more about the field study and how they can assist with volunteering in the schools. Mr. Miller spoke on the topics of community involvement and engagement and volunteering. He informed the committee that the district is working to develop a streamlined process to get more volunteers into the schools. Gaps have been recognized, including defining the roles, defining clear guidelines, and implementing onboard processes so that volunteers understand the expectations and that they are welcomed properly. Moving forward, it will be important to align volunteers with opportunities available and to market those opportunities to volunteers. We moved on to the topic of Act 20, discussion of individual reading plans and how the work will be accomplished. Dr. Coleman informed the committee that part of the Act 20 includes a universal screener called AIM Web Plus. By using this testing in the fall, it will help gauge what is needed moving forward. In kindergarten and first grade, 8 minutes per child of face-to-face testing is required. Diagnostics will supply necessary information about what needs to be done to support students. If students fall below 25% in any of the levels of testing, additional assessments and a reading plan will be needed starting in January to be in compliance. Our final topic was an update on block scheduling by Mrs. Kiffmeyer, who informed the committee that department heads met on August 27th, but the universal information will take place during professional development on September 25th. There will be an opportunity for feedback on September 27th based on content and if they are in middle or high school. It's important that teachers fully understand what block scheduling means to them and to their teaching, as there are a lot of misconceptions about block scheduling. The high school schedule would likely have 4x4 blocks, that is 90 minutes for a full block of time, and what are called skinnies, which would be 45-minute classes. Input from staff will guide the work for block scheduling. The district will need to also expand course offerings, including more capstone experiences to make certain we are meeting the needs of the students. Course expansion will need to be done regardless of whether or not block scheduling moves forward. Implementation of block scheduling would be planned to start in the 2026-27 school year. This would allow time for work on teacher professional development for teaching in a block, the expansion of course offerings, and the course guide. The committee was asked what, as a board, they would like to see as far as teacher input or support to be able to make an informed decision on block scheduling. The committee suggested that either polling the staff directly or using the department chairs as leaders who obtain the input, and they would like to see a healthy majority to assist in making this large decision. The committee also suggested that indicating how block scheduling could help impact student learning would be very helpful to see. Feedback from students could also be a great indicator for the board in making their final decision. Our big decision for the day was to move our monthly meeting to the first Wednesday of the month. And the next meeting of the Education Committee will be next week, Wednesday, October 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Facilities and Finance.
Thank you, Mrs. Wyman.
You get it all tonight.
We had 5 topics on our agenda for our September 12th meeting of the Facilities and Finance Committee. One of the things we discussed with Mr. Nehans was input from committee members on what information they would like to have quick access to. When the board did its self-evaluation, I believe that was in June, there was an indication that the board wanted more information on budgeting and the whole finance picture. So we gave Mr. Nehans some input on that. We had also been asked to review our processes for real estate transactions and legal counsel. Our discussion covered how the process to purchase property has taken place over the years, and also discussed some changes that we would like to see in the future, and we also touched on implications for board policy. We also got an update from Dr. Davis on the UW population study. As he noted, multiple school districts across the state, including our own, have been involved in the demographic studies. These studies have found that 70 to 75% of the school districts in the state, and we have 421 public school districts, are experiencing declining birth rates, and that over the next 5 years, our enrollment is expected to be down approximately 100 students per year. We also discussed co-curricular pay grid updates for the middle school and high school with Mr. Helmbrecht, Mr. Jadarski, and Mr. Leader. We looked at how equitable our payments are, or compensation would be relative to our peer group, and a request was made to review stipends for athletics every 5 years. And finally, Mr. Fox addressed the topic of the Merrill Site Memorial Area. The Historical Society would like to see a sketch of what the district intends to do with that land in question, and a two-dimensional design was to be provided to the Historical Society by Friday, September 20th. Our next meeting is October 10th, and the start time is 7:30 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Legislative Committee, Mr. Wright.
Thank you. The Legislative Committee met yesterday morning, Tuesday, September 24th at 8:30 a.m. We had a pretty light agenda. Agenda item number 1, we discussed some draft priorities for the state budget, which will be figured out for the years 2025 through 2027, which will be highly dependent upon upcoming elections and who gets voted in and what their priorities are. But the 3 things that we got updates on that we regularly check in on is special education student funding, which is currently at 32%. There's some talk that the state could possibly want to increase that to 60%, but we'll see. And then we talked about inflationary increases for revenue limit and categorical aid. And then 3, increasing the low revenue limit ceiling to $12,500 per student. The current amount is $11,325 per student. As a district, we are still trying to catch up on a formula that was created in 1992 and 1993. So that was a while ago. I think I was 10 then. So maybe they'll update that. And then we had a WASB legislative update, which basically every year school districts can send resolutions to the state Wisconsin Association of School Board Conference, and we as a school board will have the option to do that later in this year. And Stephanie Carlin is our representative from the Oshkosh Area School Board to the WASB assembly. So in the future later this year, we'll have some resolutions, and then as a board we'll decide what ones we want to send forward and advocate for our district with. So that's it. Our next meeting will be October 22nd at October 22nd in case of at 8:30 a.m. in case if anyone wants to spend their morning at a legislative update. So thank you.
Thank you. Policy and Governance.
Thank you, Ms. Wyman. The Policy and Governments Committee met yesterday at 7:30 here in the boardroom. The committee reviewed 15 policies that had updates recommended by Neola. Of those policies, 14 are being recommended to the full board for approval at the October 9th board meeting. You can go look at the website for the specific policy information and changes. The next meeting of this committee will be Tuesday, October 22nd at 7:30, where the committee will review a couple different policies here. Policy 0171.3 in regards to the clerk, to review the duties of the clerk in comparison to the duties of the secretary and deputy clerk. And then we will also be talking about policy 6320 in regards to purchasing, to increase the threshold from $250,000 for purchases, as well as there were 2 policies that were not reviewed yesterday due to time constraints. Policy 0167.3, public comment at board meetings, and policy 1260 regarding incapacity of the superintendent. Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
We hope that never happens.
Thank you. Yes, we'll be getting to that soon.
A hypothetical.
Yes, hypothetical.
I might get walked out if I don't say that.
Thank you all very much for your reports. Are there any non-agenda? Okay.
No.
This evening, there are no non-agenda or agenda-related public forum comments, so we'll move into the consent resolution. For the consent agenda, the board has been furnished with background material on each item or as discussed at a previous meeting. They'll be acted on with one vote without discussion. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Herzog, DeWitt. Call the roll.
Sweetly.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
DeWitt.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Hess.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
And next, we have the individually considered resolutions. The first one is approval of the 24-25 budget. Motion?
So moved.
Right.
Second.
Hess? Discussion.
Drew, do you want to join us?
I have a question. Mrs. Anderson asked about this sheet. And maybe I'm reading it wrong. The district administrative staff, FTE, the way I'm reading the ratio is one of ours provides coverage for 253 people, 0.1, and other districts provided for 232.3. So we really have less per pupil than other districts.
Correct. The way you would read these charts for these is the higher the number, before the colon and the 1, the higher the number, the fewer staff
Yes.
you have.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes.
All right, that's my question.
I have a question also related to the things that you and Brian both said. Could you explain, you talked about how, you both talked about how prepaying some of the debt is helping us with student aid, and that effectively reduces the amount of locally taxed funding needed. Can you just explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, with state aid.
Yes,
Yeah,
the
so,
state aid.
yeah, money coming from the
How
states.
does that counteract?
Yeah,
Or
so
what happens?
Drew can.
Yeah, so in essence, state aid is a calculation that gets done. It basically, to simplify it, is it takes your expenses from your general fund, so Fund 10, and it reduces the revenue off of that, that qualify for the formula, and that gives you a per member amount that then gets divided out by your property value. And then you get that per member value as by your membership for aid. So the more you spend in qualifying categories, the more aid you get. So just as an example, had we not prepaid debt this last fiscal year, we would have gone up in our local levy, and we wouldn't have been able to have a reduction in this year's tax levy, because our aid would have been that much lower, where the balance shifts the other way more towards the local than it does the state. So for us, the way we're aided, and not every district's aided this way, it gets us more state money the more we spend.
Okay.
Other questions?
Well,
Mr. Wright?
I think one of the arguments that's being made in correlation to the 12.5 million that we'd be using to pay down debt is that it's at an interest rate of what, 1.6 to 3.2%?
In that range.
Right? So, I mean, obviously, a private corporation would take that money and invest it in something that would get them, 6 to 10%, and they'd make a bunch of money off of it. But can you explain how a school district is different than a private company in regards to that? Because I don't think the general public gets that.
We don't get to invest money, so we don't, what the scenario you presented, public entities, school districts, we're very limited on what we can invest and where that goes. So our debt payments that are due, it's truly a principal and an interest. So again, this year, we paid 1.3 million on interest. Even though it's low interest, it still adds up to 1.2 to 1.3 million dollars, which is a significant chunk of change.
And it is. And ever since I've been on the board, I was a proponent of paying down debt, for sure. I mean, I do get the argument from an interest rate standpoint, but the school district operates differently as well. So thank you for clarifying that.
Yes.
Dr. Hess?
I think I wouldn't compare it to other business entities. It's a question of what does the individual taxpayer get to do with it? And they could invest that money, and they could end up gaining more than the 1.66%. So from their standpoint, this is just an utter loss, that we're taking this to pay down debt at 1.66%. You can say, well, I'm paying down more interest. I do understand that. But the taxpayer could take that money, invest it, and make more money, and still pay that interest and still be better off. So that's the struggle with it. And I look at the whole thing, and Mr. Neons, I appreciate everything that you have done in that budget, and I think that you have summarized it very well. I look at all the individual elements of it and say, you know, especially I think we've discussed the Fund 80, and there I see some fiscal restraint. You're not doing as much as you did last time. You did lower. That's great. I agree entirely that the reason why this is coming down is because of all the additional aid, and that additional aid is in part because we are prepaying debt. I think in 2022 is when this board chose to prepay the $45 million note in 5 years, but this will have effectively, after we levy for this year, we will have effectively paid that off in now 3 years, right? I think is what has happened here. We had the 23, 24, and now 25 levy. That will be gone.
Correct.
And so that's where I struggle with, is I understand you guys made that decision. We had 5 years to pay it off. We paid it off in 3, so be it. But the taxpayer is struggling, that there are a large portion of people that are living paycheck to paycheck. I can understand making the payment on the $65 million bond, the minimum payment that we have to. I understand that we have Oak Lawn debt to pay, but when there's $12.5 million that doesn't have to be paid, that could give some tax relief, I feel like we have to do that. And I want to remind us all that when this district went to referendum, they told the taxpayer that this was going to cost them $85 per $100,000 of value. So, okay, now we're looking at, for a $200,000 house, that would have been $170 a year. But this last year, it cost them roughly $800. And I go, I understand we're paying down debt, but we told the taxpayer it was going to cost them something, and it substantially deviated from that. And now, if we add this $12.5 million onto it, it's only going towards lower interest rate debt, and I can't buy into that. So I will be voting no on this year's budget.
Can I just clarify something on that?
Of course.
We also communicated to the community on that the anticipated total cost of Phase 1 was going to be $162 million. Currently, our top cost is going to be $122 million. So we did bring that down $40 million by the last 3-year structure and plan that we've had in place.
I need to respond to that.
Sure.
But
okay.
a large portion of that was actually on the 1.6% interest rate note. That was substantially lower than the projections back in 2020. I think you were projecting that, and I don't think it was you.
But
I think it was Sue.
it's the comparison between projected and reality that you were making is the same projection I'm making. Comparison.
Okay.
I want to confirm some basic facts that I think I have written down correctly. Our operating budget is, for this current year that we are in, was around $69 million. We're going down to approximately $63 million, so it's approximately a $3 to $4 million decrease.
I think it's 66 million. It's
But so
about
it's
5% decrease.
Approximately
Yeah.
5% decrease.
Yes.
So it will equate to a 5% decrease in the tax levy for our public schools, correct? And then we have saved $40 million over 3 years, so the actual cost of Phase 1 is $40 million less to the taxpayers than originally anticipated over the lifespan.
Correct.
And is it, so, I think those are my things. I want to make sure that I have the right numbers when I'm talking to people in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wright?
I mean, I just have one more comment, and I'm going to be voting for this. We reduced the levy by 5%, right? In these inflationary times, which we should commend you, because that takes good budgeting practices. There's a number of other municipalities in the area that aren't going to be able to do that, right? They're not. And at the same time, we're paying off a whole bunch of debt that isn't going to burden future boards or our district in the future. So by all standards that I can apply, in my mind, that's a very conservative budget. I mean, how many governments, well, let's use our federal government, for example, pay off debt like that and reduce the levy by 5%. And thank you. That's all I have to say.
Dr. Herzog, Mrs. DeWitt, comments?
Well, I had an opportunity to meet with Mr. Nehans yesterday with some questions I had relative to some specifics in the budget as he had presented those to us, and those showed a reduction of $300,000 in one object and $400,000 in another. And what he shared with me was that those were the reductions that were realized as a result of the building of the Bell Phillips Middle School and anticipated for Menominee School. So I believe that due diligence has been done in showing us where some of those reductions have actually been realized or will be realized moving forward in this budget, since this is the first year for Menominee School, and we don't have the first year, we don't have a full year to go on, but we have the projections in terms of staff saving and staff travel and those kinds of things. So I will be supporting this budget.
Mrs. DeWitt?
Yeah, I don't have much to say other than if I am presented and given an opportunity to give the taxpayer a break, I'm certainly going to do that. I don't believe at this time I'm able to support this budget either. So I will be voting no as well.
Okay. Any other comments? All right. Can you call the roll, please?
Right.
Yes.
Wyman.
Aye.
DeWitt.
No.
Herzog.
Aye.
Hess.
Nope.
Smolley.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Okay, we have one more. Approval of short-term borrowing line of credit.
So moved.
Second.
I'm so sorry. Who was who?
Hess? DeWitt.
Do it.
Discussion.
Drew, any intro on that?
Just want to be up here in case you have any questions. Again, this is a new process. We have gone away from the traditional TRAN short-term borrowing. One, this is less costly to the district, and it provides us with a little more flexibility on when we need the money, as opposed to just having it for an extended period of time. Again, we are very limited in a public system of borrowing money and being able to make money off of that borrowing. We have an arbitrage we have to uphold to. So this is a less cost-effective, or a more cost-effective and an easier, more efficient way to borrow for our controller. So did anyone have any questions on the borrowing?
I also wanted to acknowledge Nicolay Bank as part of this process, so they've been good partners to help
Correct.
move us forward in this.
Yes.
I think I just have a comment too, that I attended this meeting where this was presented, and I thought it was a very good example of having an active partnership with here our banking partner to actively figure out ways to better meet the needs of the district. And I hope we can continue to do that with Nicolay and in other partnerships.
Very good. Any other comments, questions?
I will support
Dr.
this as
Herzog.
well. I think that this line of credit will save taxpayers money because the money won't be out there on the borrowing end of things, and we only need to borrow it for as long as we need, and we can pay it back as revenues come in. So I see this as a cost savings for our taxpayers as well.
Okay. Call the roll.
Wyman.
Aye.
DeWitt.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Hess.
Aye.
Smithley.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Request for future agenda items? Anyone? Announcements? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Yes?
Second, Barb.
Hess and Herzog.
Yes. The agents.
All right.
Ready?
Aye. Herzog.
Aye.
Hess.
Aye.
Smithley.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, community.
That's what you do.